Welcome. I'm here today with Howard Newmark, a highly respected, experienced publisher, development manager and deal maker. In a career spanning over 30 years in the games business, Howard was the director of licensing and acquisition at Accolade, formerly Atari. He ran the famous indie studio Creature Labs, was the main sales guy at Asylum Entertainment for many years, where he was responsible for a raft of major licenses. He's the co-founder and deal maker at games publisher Iceberg Interactive, where he's recently signed a major deal for Killing Floor 2. Howard understands every aspect of development, production, and the sales lifecycle, from creative concept through mainstream marketing to maximizing a long sales tail. I'm really excited that he's here today. He's an old friend of mine, and I know he has some fabulous insights for us all. Howard, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
With your current Iceberg hat on, we've got many young new developers, hungry developers who will be watching this interview. What are publishers looking for particularly at the moment? Are there particular genres? What state do you need the game in? Is there a certain quality that you're looking for?
We don't really specifically look at genres. I mean, we have a mantra, which is a little bit unusual, I suppose. I don't know. We will only kind of publish games that we really enjoy playing, and there's quite a sort of diverse bunch of us at Iceberg. So we like playing all sorts of stuff. You know, everything from sort of Football Manager to shooters, whatever. But you know, if we enjoy playing a game, I know that kind of comes through when we're marketing a game, because we know that we're being sincere. We're sincere about playing the game and understanding it. I mean, this year we've got some pretty unusual stuff coming out for us. We're reasonably well known for deep strategy games, space games, that kind of stuff. But this year we've got a really fun party game called Head Snatchers, which we just announced, which is a sort of Gang Beast style couch game. It's a complete departure from what we've done before, but we so enjoyed playing it when we were sent the demo that it kind of went top of our wish list, and we went out and got it. So that's quite exciting. And also we've got AntiGravity coming out in a few weeks, which is I guess, Wipeout style anti-gravity racer with some really unique twists. It looks absolutely stunning. It's getting a lot of press right now. Again, not something we are typically associated with, but such a fun game. And we're focusing more and more on multi-platform releases. We have a great relationship with Steam, but we've been working with Microsoft for a while now, and we are working with Sony this year, and hopefully we'll start working with Nintendo at some point as well. But in turn, just really, we like to play. If we like to play it, we'll look at how commercial it is. That's probably the first stage. In terms of quality, I mean, yeah, the bar is very high now, so the quality has to be there. And the demo that we play, I mean, we don't normally look at a game unless we've got at least an alpha stage demo, because then we know that most of the bones are in there and the game is going to get finished one way or the other. So we don't tend to look at stuff off paper, and it helps if the studio has got some form and has worked before, or at least the individuals have got some stuff, some titles published under their belt. So that's it really. I mean, just cool stuff. We're not genre specific. If we enjoy playing it, then yeah. And we're a small group of people. We don't have a massive green light committee. There's just a few of us. Got a few, we'll take a look at the game, and if we like it and the commercials make sense, then there's a very good chance we'll go ahead with it.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Howard. That's really clear and insightful. Is it deliberate at all that these latest two titles, they sound more mainstream than what you're normally known for?
I don't think it's deliberate. It just seems to have panned out that way. I mean, at one time we were the sort of go-to publisher for people with deep strategy games and space games, and then we ended up getting a game from a small French studio, which was like a music game, a little party game, and we published that, and we had such fun with it. And I think maybe people saw that, you know, we weren't just publishing these strategy games, and that we could diversify, and people started offering us more and more stuff. And you know, it wasn't really a conscious decision from our part. We just ended up kind of broadening what we were working on. I suppose in a way, it's not a good thing to just be stuck in the same kind of genre. It's okay if you're known for that, and if you're, let's say you do football management games and that's what you do, then that's fine. But you know, you need to kind of spread it out a bit. And I guess when you're looking to move to console and across platforms, you are more likely to, you know, to find different, you know, more general kind of genres, I guess.
Alpha is, you know, that's pretty much all of the risk reduced, or most of the risk reduced.
It proves the technology and it proves the playability of the game. I wouldn't say that it's all the risk, because, you know, it's going to be full of bugs. There's going to be crash bugs. There's going to be a lot of work that still needs doing. But we can see, I mean, if we're at a show, let's say we're at the Game Connection show, either there's, you know, there are various ones around the world that we attend. We might look at we might have 40 games to look at, or maybe even more across 3 or 4 days. Sorry, 3 or 4 days. So it just helps, you know, that we know that there is proof of concept and there's proof of technology, and we can just get an idea of how the gameplay works. But it's not really, I wouldn't say it was de-risked entirely.
Do you take stuff that's earlier than alpha? Say if the concept is proven and the technology is proven, is that enough?
We haven't yet. It's not really in our kind of nature to do that. I mean, if something really blows us away and it was from a studio that we were familiar with or who's had a lot of output before, we might consider that. It's just not something we've done so far. We do tend to work with a small stable of developers who always come back, always bring their titles back to us, and we know. So for instance, I know, let's say one of our studios, the one that does, Little Green Men. You know, I mean, because we've known them and we have a great relationship with them, if they come to us and say, okay, we are looking to do the next in this line or another product, but we haven't written a line of code yet, we'll work with them again, because obviously we have a great relationship with them and we trust them and we know them. But you know, I think we need to see that kind of trust built up before we would look at something that was pre-alpha. So if you're new to us as a development studio, yeah, we don't take massive risks.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I can understand that, being at the size that you are. You know, you said it's a small group of people, right?
Yes.
And also you're choosing the titles based on you loving them and being able to get behind them, yeah?
Yes. Yeah. So, you know, it's hard to get really excited about something that's just on paper. I mean, we really need to be able to play it. And, you know, I mean, some of the games have got a relatively simple game mechanic, but they're just so fun. We think, yeah, we think everyone's going to really enjoy that. You know, something like Head Snatchers, very simple gameplay. You know, one of those games that's sort of 2 minutes to pick up and then a lifetime to master type of thing, where you just learn strategies and what have you, but the gameplay is really simple. We could see how that could work very quickly. So, you know, sometimes that's, you know, it happens like that.
Thank you. I mean, in the 30 years that you've been in the business, you've managed some pretty tricky negotiations.
Mm,
often with multiple stakeholders, each with a different requirement or an agenda. How
sure.
do you manage to keep all of the different parties happy? Do you have a secret? How do you serve all the constituents of a deal in a balanced way?
You just need to find a way through a negotiation where everybody gets at least most of what they wanted. And if you know, if you feel that there is the deal is just not going to happen, sometimes you just kind of got to keep digging away and not taking no for an answer. Um, and it is hard. You've just got to be have a bit of a mentality like a door-to-door salesman. I had this mentality where you just every time you get a no, it means you're one door closer to getting a yes, and you just have to, you just have to do that. I mean, sometimes it's very difficult. There are cultural issues. You're dealing with a stakeholder, for example, a licensor in Japan, and a developer in Germany, and a publisher in the UK, and you're up all hours just trying to put this deal together, and it can be very tiring. But you just kind of have to, keep your eye on the prize. And sometimes I've had deals that can take 9 months to a year to put together, and there's no reward in sight, and unless that deal happens. But if you believe in that the project is going to work and it will be a success, you just got to keep on plugging away. There is no magic formula. Just try and make sure that everybody gets at least most of what they want out of the deal.
What's been the most difficult but the most rewarding deal for you?
I mean, difficult was, I remember dealing with Namco years ago, and we were making a Pac-Man game, and they sent us over their style guide. This was when I was running a studio. They sent us a style guide, and we kept getting answers back from them saying things like, "Miss Pac-Man's eyes are wrong. Please change them." And then we'd write back to them and say, "Can you tell us what is wrong with them?" And they would just come back and say, "Please refer to the style guide." And it was, and stuff like that. So it's like we're trying to produce this game which we believe will be very successful, and you will share in that success because it's, you're the license holder. Can you just kind of throw us a bone here and just try and help us out? And it was just really tough. So yeah, I guess getting that approved was probably the most rewarding, or one of the most rewarding things. And I think the other one was really something that we worked together on, which was Peppa Pig, because I mean, I have my children to thank for that. But when we originally looked at the Peppa Pig license, it was a small TV show. It wasn't. I don't think it was. Certainly wasn't international, but it was certainly in its infancy. And I only really knew it because my kids were watching it avidly at the time. And we went to a couple of people and showed them it, and they were sort of, "Well, what makes you think this is going to be a success?" I don't get it. And it was people who didn't have kids, or just couldn't see where it was. And of course, it became a multi-million selling franchise for us. And I think just walking in to retailers and seeing it plastered everywhere, that was a big reward for me, because I was convinced, and we were convinced, that it was going to be a great franchise and a great success, and it was. It was just awesome, just walking in and seeing it, piles and piles of it, on the shelves. It was great.
Yeah, I remember it well, of course. Not many people believed us that it was going to be successful. And I remember it being very difficult to negotiate as well at one stage. And in the end, I think it got signed with an even bigger distributor.
Yeah,
And that was very enjoyable.
it did. And it's just nice when you see people saying, "Oh, we've ordered another 150,000, 200,000, 300,000 units," and then we'll just work out when we order the next 200,000. Suddenly you think, wow, this is a monster. It's just great. It was just great to see.
You know, working with you over the years, what I really enjoyed is your understanding of the business from start to finish. So the product life cycle, starting with full price and then working through the various price points right through to a bargain bucket in the garage if needs be. How do you maximize each step of that process along the way?
It really varies according to the platform these days, because there are different kind of disciplines need different needs. So retailers have a certain way of dealing with it, and the digital sites have a totally different way. There's a much longer tail on digital because retailers have only got a certain shelf space, and they've always got new product coming through. So they're always going to try and maximize the space. So what tends to happen with them is they will want you to present them with a plan, like an exit plan. This is how long we're going to have it on, at full price. Then we're going to put it down to this price for a sale, and then put it back up, and then we're going to gradually waterfall the price. That is to say, reduce the price on a permanent basis until it's closed out and gone, because we've got all these other products coming in. But of course, in the digital space, there's an infinite amount of space, or there is supposed to be an infinite. There's not unfortunately, there's only a finite number of eyeballs looking at that space. And there's only one front page, but you can manage the life cycle and have the prices, maintain a longer, decent price point on digital. So it's just really a question of keeping an eye on what's happening sales-wise and managing all the big sort of marquee sales. That is to say, the summer sale, the spring sale, Halloween, all these kind of things that have suddenly become, Labor Day. I mean, all these weird sales that pop up. They're just really an excuse to do, to have a promo, but you will sell, decent volume during those periods. So, I wouldn't say there's a set formula, although there does come a point in a product life cycle where you can only discount it so far, and discounting it even more will actually not bring you any more money. And what we tend to find, certainly on PC, is if you discount something more than about 50 to 60%, you don't really sell any more than if you certainly if you discount it to say 80%, you won't sell any more than if you discount it to 60%, and you've left a big margin on the table. So it's just really a question of managing, looking at what's gone before and managing sales. We find really quirky things like sometimes we'll discount something to 40% and then 50% and then go back up to 40%, see what happens, and it sells 3 times as many as when it was at 50%. It's just a weird. There's no real rhyme or reason to it other than keeping an eye on what's going on, looking at the sales, and just responding. We always respond to a lot of the accounts who ask me for a sale. Are we doing a sale? We've got a site-wide sale, or we've got this sale, or we've got that sale. So not just on Steam, but on all the other digital portals that we deal with, just managing them. Just the other thing I would say is that if you've got, because we've got a reasonably big portfolio now on Steam, what we tend to do is we always have 1 or 2 titles on a discount, on a weekly discount, on a rolling basis, because there's only you're only allowed to do it for a certain period of time, and then you have to wait and then reapply to do it again. So it's not on a permanent sale. But if because we always have a couple of titles on, we're always somewhere towards the front of the queue. We're always somewhere on the you know, on Steam's, first few pages, and we get a lot of click-throughs to our main publisher page because of that. So all of our developers and all of our products benefit in some way from the fact that it may not necessarily be their product on sale, but because we are always promoting, they will always get, some daylight and so, some visibility on the website. And then, of course, we have our publisher weekend, which is a huge event for us, where we will be, on the front page of Steam for an entire weekend, and that is a huge bonanza. It's great to be able to have that amazing relationship with Steam, where we get that granted, from time to time, but that gives our entire portfolio a huge amount of eyeballs, millions of eyeballs for the weekend. So that's also great.
And do you discount during that weekend?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point. It's like a massive sale. So all of our products are on sale, or there's a special deal on all of them. And what tends to happen, I mean, it's obviously not just us, but a lot of publishers get these weekends, and there's a lot of publicity surrounding them on Twitter and on Facebook, and there's a lot of social buzz that goes on, both from Steam, from Valve, who actually promote it themselves, and obviously the publisher does a lot of promoting to let everybody know that this weekend has come up. So it's a big event.
With these, promos, say if they're, could be based around Halloween or event-driven promos.
Yeah.
Is everybody fighting for that slot? How are you able to negotiate those particular event deals?
Well, I mean, the honest truth is we get invited, and I guess it's just because we have such a great relationship with the guys at Valve, because we've got a pretty diverse and quite a big portfolio with them now. We get invited. Some of the big marquee events, everybody is invited to submit their product. Some of them, there's a select few people. I mean, you can put any of your product through, whether or not it gets selected. They're pretty, they keep their cards close to their chest in terms of how they work out what the criteria is for joining these events. But I mean, I hope that a lot of it is just down to our relationship with them.
How long did it take you to cultivate that relationship?
I mean, I always say that we were publishing PC games before it became fashionable. So, I mean, we've been in the PC games market now. I think, well, we've been going 10 years this year. So we've had a relationship with Steam for most of that. So, and the relationship gets stronger and stronger. But I guess our first games on Steam were, 8 or 9 years ago, something like that. So it's taken us, several years.
Great. And congratulations on celebrating 10 years there.
Thank you.
Can we talk a little bit about platform holder deals?
Yeah.
I know that you've recently completed deals with Microsoft, and you're also working on a deal with Sony. How difficult are these deals to negotiate and land? Do you have to be very patient? What pitfalls are there to watch out for?
It has become a lot easier to deal with Sony. They used to want you to have a 6 or 7 games lined up, and to show them your entire portfolio for the next 5 or 6 years before they'd let you work on their platform. Now that's changed, and it's a lot easier to get involved with Sony. And of course, Microsoft have got their Idea Xbox system set up, and it's very successful now. But that is digital only, so you still need to have a separate relationship with them. if you want to do box to Xbox product. So, I mean, the barrier to entry certainly has come down if you are a developer and you want to work directly with these guys. But you still, you know, in my opinion, and obviously I would say this as a publisher, but I think you still really need the services of a publisher in order to get the visibility that you need, because you're still going to, you know, have the same issues of standing out amongst thousands of titles. So you're going to need someone or a team of people to do your PR and your marketing, to look at how you deal with the influencers and make the YouTubers want to play your games. So there's a lot more to it than just getting a listing on Xbox or on Sony, on PSN.
And that's really insightful. Again, with regard to the marketing there, with regard to the marketing and PR. Do the platform holders offer incentives as well? I mean, I know Microsoft certainly offer some marketing money to games that they like. Same for Sony?
Well, that's if you're doing the full publishing deal with them. I mean, if you are going exclusive on one or other of the platforms, you will normally get some love out of them on their website, on Idea Xbox or on PSN. Those things are not promised, and there's no guarantee, but you can get that from them on occasion. But it's really what happens outside of those actual websites that really you have to think about. So, marketing to the wider community, and dealing with all of the games websites, game journalists, content providers, influencers, that kind of thing. And that's really where a publisher will do the heavy lifting, and allow you to concentrate on making the best game you possibly can without having to worry about visibility and marketing, that kind of stuff.
And does Iceberg provide solely those publishing services outside of development funding?
I mean, there's no one deal that is the same for us. I mean, we will fund or co-fund development, and we will give a marketing guarantee. We have our own in-house PR team. We have our own in-house marketing team. We're present at all the PAX shows, so we spend a lot of time, at shows, E3. If we've got a big game at E3, then we'll be there showing it. Apart from going to E3 anyway, generally. Game Development Conference GDC we had a booth there this year, which was great, showing a couple of our games off, and we're at all the PAX shows. So this is also a pretty important part of what we do as well, and part of what we offer.
Thank you. What is a PAX show? Just for
PAX,
maybe
PAX. There's several shows. Sorry, my monitors just went on again. There's PAX East and PAX West. I think there's another PAX. I think there's at least 2 PAX shows. They're massive consumer shows in the States, in Boston and in God, my brain. Hang on, let me think about where the other one is. I don't do them. You can tell. I'll send someone else. So yeah, there's one in Seattle and there's one in Boston at different times of the year. Massive consumer events. You get a lot of YouTubers there who are playing hands-on and write about the games. It's a really good way of getting a lot of people to see your game. And quite often there are games that are not released or are released. There's all sorts of stuff there. It's good. It's a good show.
you've got a great long-standing relationship with the platform holders, Microsoft, now Sony, and primarily Steam.
when managing those relationships, what are the do's and don'ts?
Don't assume that these guys will automatically help you. And what I mean by that is in terms of marketing and visibility, because they've got a lot going on, and they are great at helping you with technical issues and getting you through submission and getting the product out on the platform. But you don't assume that you are going to automatically get help from them. You can help yourself by creating demand for the game, getting the game up on the websites early, as coming soon. Especially on Steam, you want to try and do that as early as possible so that you can get wish lists. Wish lists are an indication, or pre-orders. They're an indication of the demand that is being built up for the title. So, particularly on Steam, if you've got a lot of wish lists, it means that there is demand, and you may well get a lot more assistance in launch marketing, let's say. So, on the front page or that kind of thing. There are different sized, there are various places that you can get seen. There's always the now released or just released section, but because there's so many titles coming out on any one day, you soon disappear down that ranking very fast, because it's just based on the fact that your game has just been released. So you want to try and get visibility on some of the bigger front page capsules. And the only real way you can do that, unless you have a great relationship with these guys, is to prove that there is going to be demand, and that as soon as the game releases, people are buying it. And the only real way to do that is to do the marketing before you release the title, to create the demand. So that's why you need to do things like have a really good fun demo of the game, and to make sure that you get lots of YouTubers and lots of people engaged in the game and looking forward to seeing the game being released. Don't assume the platform holders are going to do that for you.
Do you use early access at Iceberg?
Yeah, we've had one of the most successful early access programs that Steam have ever seen. So I would say it's a great opportunity, but there are some caveats that I would use with early access. The first one being, don't use early access to fund your game. That is a big mistake. Use early access to test out your game and be prepared to get a lot of feedback, positive and negative, because you will get both. And you need to be prepared to engage with the community when they actually write to you about your game. First of all, you need to be prepared to engage with them and discuss with people why you've done certain things, what you're prepared to change. Go back to them and say, thanks, that's a really good idea, we're going to do that. Or, thanks, that's a really good idea, we probably won't do that this time, but we'll maybe save that for an update, for DLC or for another version. And also, if you're going to do early access, be prepared to actually make some changes. Because one thing that really irks people is going into early access and then not changing the game at all, because then that's just obviously just a cynical money grab. So it works for some people, and it works for some games, but not for others. But certainly for us, we found with our strategy games that the early access has been great. It's been really good.
It's very useful what you're telling our audience here, so thank you. I mean, a lot of people are jumping on the early access platform just to fund their title, right?
Yeah, I think that's a mistake.
We've done a lot of box products deals where it's been really distribution only, or we've co-published with a distributor. I'm assuming you still do some box product, or has it completely changed now? Are there such things as distribution only deals now in the digital world?
We did a distribution only deal with Killing Floor 2 with Koch. Sony did the digital version, or Tripwire rather, the developer did the digital version, and we negotiated a deal with Koch for the Xbox and PS4 version. It's only a matter of time before that's going to be very difficult. The reason being that you need to there needs to be a sort of critical mass of box sales so that you can actually market them properly. And by marketing, I'm not just talking about traditional marketing, but I'm talking about marketing with retailers, because retailers want to have their marketing development fund, and they want to be able to promote in store. So it really needs to be a massive AAA title now, I think, for it to be to do a box deal with a publisher. I mean, we still sell some box product on PC in some markets, Eastern Europe, a little bit in the US, not very much anymore, and Germany is still a reasonably decent boxed PC market. But it's it's getting to the point where it's not, it's just not economically viable. Actually, it's outlasted my predictions. I thought it would have gone a few years ago, but it's still you can still sell PC games in a box, just not very many.
Yeah, so I mean, you've done so many deals, it's over the years. I mean, I've certainly been present to at least sort of 20 of those deals. And when you're doing these deals, what problems do you come across? What are typical problems that a developer might experience or needs to look out for?
I think a lot of the problems tend to be around money. And by that, what I mean is either assuming that the publisher is going to be paying for all of the development, or just that you just run out of road because you haven't worked out your development strategy properly. I mean, that tends to be the biggest problem, is just overrunning on development due to feature creep or issues that you weren't expecting. And they things like multiplayer. We see so many development plans that say, yes, we'll take a month to work out multiplayer, and it ends up taking 4 to 6 months. So someone has to fund that, and it won't always be the publisher, because if you have to give up, if the publisher has to pay you more money, then he has to get that money back somehow. So it may just mean you get a smaller royalty, or you don't see any royalties for longer than you expect. So a developer has to be able to survive, not just until they hand over the gold master disc. They have to be able to survive for several months until the publisher has recouped their, or whatever their deal is. It's likely they'll want to recoup quite a lot of their risk money before they start paying you any royalties. So it's all about just the fact that you're a developer and you love making games, and it's great that you're doing that and you've got the freedom to do that, but it is also a business, and it's just having those business skills that sometimes I find are lacking. And I hate doing it, but giving a developer a lesson in economics, I do that quite often. And also just not knowing the how the business works in terms of royalties. So for example, I'll get something from a developer that will say, okay, we will, we expect to sell 80,000 or 100,000 in the first 6 months at $10 a unit. So we expect the income to be $1 million. And you think, well, hang on a minute. First of all, where's the platform holders cut? Where is the marketing money? Where, and they've basically just assumed that just putting a title out at $10 means they're going to get $10, when of course they might more than likely only end up with $3 or $4 by the time all the stakeholders have had their bit. It's just kind of basic stuff like that, just not knowing how the business works. That happens a lot, and it is a bit of a rude awakening quite often for a developer. So it's really important to understand how the games industry works from a business standpoint before you start writing your business plan and working out how you're actually going to turn this into a business.
With Head Snatchers, it's a party game.
Yes.
Will there be any peripherals to go with that? I know you've got experience in the peripheral market.
It's a game that could be worked using a controller or a keyboard, so it could be quite cool to do some sort of customized controllers or that kind of thing. And also figurines seem to be quite a big thing these days. So I could quite see figurines figuring somewhere, if you pardon the expression, somewhere down the line if the game is as successful as we expect. So yeah, haven't really thought about it, but it'd be quite cool to do.
Is there still much of a peripherals market these days? Is it still as vibrant as ever, do you say?
I think so. I mean, it tends to be more centered around controllers, and obviously with the Switch, there's the kind of stuff that you would expect to see, like cases and controllers and that kind of stuff, and lots of memory in one configuration or another. But yes, I mean, there are all sorts of interesting custom controllers coming along all the time. And of course, the other big peripheral explosion is in VR, where there's all sorts of sexy hardware coming along all the time.
What are your thoughts on VR? Is it too soon for Iceberg?
We don't tend to be technological pioneers, and there have been a couple of games that we've been involved in. Killing Floor Incursion is probably the biggest game that we've been involved in with VR, and it's done pretty well. I'm pretty pleased with it. It's an absolutely terrifying game to play, and I don't want to play it ever again. But it's up to some people how they want to spend their days. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we would get involved in a VR only game at this stage. And I think a lot, if you're in early enough and you've got a very cool game like Arizona or Killing Floor, a few other games, then that's great. But yeah, I mean, the hardware is not penetrating like it was supposed to at this stage. It's just too expensive still, and it's nowhere near mainstream. So yeah, if it's VR only, we're probably not the right people to talk to.
Yeah, I hear that a lot actually from people that I speak to. You also work internationally. You've done deals in the States and in Europe. Are there big differences between those kind of deals?
Well, I mean, just the sort of cultural differences, really, and the fact that certainly if you want to be dealing in the Far East, you need to really be. It's Sony of Japan are pretty difficult to get first-party deals with, and also you probably need to be partnering on a PC with a big publishing player over in China, for example, if you want to be a success there. But no, I mean, in terms of dealing with the States, they are much closer aligned to how we work than you would think. So there's no issues for us normally.
And are you trying your titles out in China?
We are, yeah.
India? How's it going?
Not India, but we are talking to a couple of pretty sizable publishers about 2 or 3 of our titles. Not every genre works over there, but we do have a couple of titles that we are looking at, and also we're more and more streaming, services are coming along, which is something that happened for a while and then kind of went away. But it seems like there are some more streaming sites coming along that might reinvigorate that sector as well. Games as a service, if you like.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I've heard people lately talking about, live ops and games as a service where you've got almost a living game, so it's no longer just downloadable content, it's real-time changes to the game. Any of your titles going down that road?
Not this year. We're looking at something next year that might well be like that. But yeah, not this year. This year our focus is on getting multi-platform releases out in a more traditional fashion.
Thank you. And you mentioned China there for a moment. Are you selling your titles in that territory now?
Well, we are in discussion with a couple of pretty big players, yeah. I mean, but it takes a long time. A game has to be certified by the Chinese government, and that can take anything up to 6 months just to get certification.
You must have a few hairy stories from working in the business at high level for so many years. Are there any that you can share with us, good and bad?
It was probably in the mid-90s when Accolade, an American company, decided to produce a soccer game in Canada using Pele as the marquee signing, as it were. So we produced a game called Pele Soccer, which was possibly the worst football game ever. And I remember our esteemed sales manager in the UK, or sales director in the UK, this was obviously Accolade, who probably will want to remain nameless, managed to do a deal with Future Zone, who then became, or they're now called Game. But he did a deal with Future Zone where they took many thousands of units as a UK exclusive, and I'm pretty sure that I was there a few months ago and most of it was still sitting in their warehouse. So I think that's probably, I should tell you, of course, that was on the Sega Mega Drive. Just I forgot that bit.
Right, wow.
Just for context, Sega Mega Drive.
I remember doing the first Doctor Who on PC, Doctor Who Destiny of the Doctors. And I asked the BBC what happened to it, because it didn't sell anything. And they said that there were 25,000 units in a landfill somewhere. If you could give 3 rules or 3 lessons learned or 3 guidelines to developers trying to get ahead and grow their studio in this current climate, what would you say to them?
Do the maths, understand, the business side of what you're doing. Be prepared to listen to criticism, and always use a publisher.
What are your thoughts on self-publishing? I mean, in a way, you know all the elements of how to self-publish.
Look, it really depends what you want out of your business. I mean, there are some games that are very small indie games that will do very well on Steam and on Xbox, breakout titles, if you like, and that happens all the time. But if you want to try and build your business in partnership with someone who knows the stuff that you don't know, then yeah, it just makes sense to use a publisher. We're not like a greedy sort of partner. We're a stakeholder, and we fulfill the role that you can't. I mean, we can't write a line of code to save our lives, and we don't expect you to understand how PR works. They're very different disciplines, but they are, they go hand in hand in making a success of a title. So if you are, I mean, we had a game, and I'm not going to tell you what it was, but I met a guy at a show in London, or Brighton. I think it was in Brighton actually. He had this game. It was a great little game. It was just him and a friend who put this game together, and I pitched for it, and I really wanted it, and they decided to go alone, and that title has been a huge success for them, and I couldn't be happier for them. So I don't want to put you off if you think your destiny is in doing it, going alone and being a success. But it's really tough. It's really tough to try and do that yourself. And why take the risk when you can get a publisher to come along for the ride? We can provide you with the funding, and we can provide you with the marketing and all the knowledge that comes with. We share in the success, and you're much more likely for it to be a success if you've got an experienced publisher on board.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's very difficult to stand out from the crowd, and you've clearly demonstrated today. Exactly. Iceberg knows exactly what it's doing when it comes to marketing and distribution of these titles. And you said you've got something coming out in a few weeks. That wasn't Head Snatchers, was it?
No, that's AntiGravity.
AntiGravity.
So it's a wipeout style anti-gravity game with a few twists. But it's very cool. It's really cool. It's 4-player local, 4-player multiplayer online split screen, and it looks astounding. It's already won a whole load of awards, and it'll be coming out on June the 6th on PC, later on in the year on Xbox and PS4, and probably next year on Switch, I hope.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'll look out for that.
Thanks.
I have one more final reflective question, if that's all right.
Sure.
You're over 30 years in the business.
Mm-hmm.
If you had your time again, what would you do differently?
I think probably I would have liked the studio Creature Labs to have gone in a slightly different direction, and who knows, maybe it would still be around today. I think probably out of all the things I've done, the running the studio was probably the most exciting for me. So it got to be a very big studio with 70 developers, and just got a bit too big, a bit too soon. And I'd have loved to have
been there.
make that. I see there are 2 or 3 mega studios in the UK. I obviously I've got some good idea of what their overhead is. I'm not sure I could sleep at night with that, with that sort of huge responsibility. But I really did enjoy running a studio. It was great. And it's nice. I get we have interns coming up that are working at Iceberg, and one of them said, because the office is just outside Amsterdam, and I turned up there, and the girl had brought in a copy of Creatures for me to sign, which I thought was really sweet. So it's nice to know that.
That's lovely.
Yeah, there's nice to know you've made a bit of a mark somewhere.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a great game. I remember it well at the time. Thank you so much for your time today.
You're very welcome.
Particularly that stuff you've delved into with regard to Steam and with regard to marketing is really interesting and helpful to us all. Lovely to chat with you as always.
Cheerio. Thank you.